Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mut'ah, temporary marriage, is acceptable in Islam, but is it something that often is seen as a taboo in our culture? Is mut'ah something which is suitable in our day and age? Is it something that is abused? Do people really need this? Is it relevant for our day and time? Today, we have Sister Fahima Muhammad and Brother Bilal Ali, and they are here to discuss the topic of Mut'ah. Fahima Muhammad, business management graduate and a qualified life coach and certified NLP practitioner, certified in mindfulness, positive psychology, relationship and couples coaching. Brother Bilal Ali Hugh, a counselor and a psychotherapist who works with disaffected young men from inner cities, helping them on their journey from boyhood to being a man. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear respected viewers of Imam Hussein television. My dear guests, wherever you are, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring down and shower you with His blessings, and I hope every one of you and your families are in good health. Today, we are going to discuss the topic of Mut'ah, or as it's known as temporary marriage. And I am honored to welcome into this discussion, this debate, this dialogue, call it what you wish, my guests this time both from London, the respected Sister Fahima Muhammad, who is, as you have heard in the introduction, is a licensed coach for couples and families. And also I am honored to welcome to this discussion Brother Bilal Ali, who himself is a counselor and a psychotherapist, mainly working with young men to help them succeed in their lives. Let me welcome my guests. Sister Fahima Muhammad, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me today. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you for joining us. And dear Brother Bilal Ali, Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Sayyid.
Thank you for joining us into this show. Let me start with Sister Fahima Muhammad with the first question, as being, for those who have just joined us and are not familiar with the term Mut'ah or temporary marriage, what is Mut'ah?
Mut'ah and temporary marriage is something that we are obviously aware of in a majority Muslim Shia sect, but it's also widely known in other sects, but it is obviously described differently. It is a marriage for a certain amount of period and time that two people will enter into an agreement between only the two of them. And the agreement obviously is temporary. There is a responsibility. There are strict rules and guidelines that we do need to abide by. So we do need to be aware of this before entering into it. And we also have to educate ourselves as to the responsibilities. It is extremely important knowing that even though there's a place for it, there's lots of issues around it, which I deal with personally on a day-to-day basis in the community. So hopefully, inshallah, as the conversation continues, I will go into that a little bit further.
Inshallah. So basically, as the difference between the this temporary marriage or this mut'ah or this short-term marriage and the normal marriage that we hear or are invited to witness, is that the long-term or the normal marriage has the expiry being till death does us apart, and the temporary marriage is until the expiry does us apart. So this is the difference between the long-term marriage and the temporary marriage, for those of the brothers and sisters, the respected viewers who have joined us and are not familiar with this terminology. How important is for temporary marriage to be a law as long-term or normal marriage to be a law in Islam, Sister Fahima?
It is extremely important. As we know, as humans, we generally want to connect with each other. And ideally, we are all in a situation where we can marry early and we can actually find that spouse. But unfortunately, especially in this day and age, we can tell that marriages are delayed for many reasons. A lot of it also is the responsibility of the parents that are delaying, youngsters from getting married, thinking that they're not ready, thinking that they have to, increase sort of their education, studies, careers. And this brings about a lot of problems. And a lot of us, we are trying to be more God-centric. We are trying to abide by the rules of our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be strict in our daily sort of choices. But when it comes to relationships, when we are mixing and mingling with people, we do need to be aware that when we do so, it has to be under strict guidelines. And this gives an option to actually mix and mingle, and we can do this in a halal way, in a way that we are protecting ourselves and the other person. So most people don't understand this. Yes, there are lots of, things that happen which may be outside sort of like the boundaries of the rules, where there's a lot of problems with the abuse of mut'ah, where people are not actually using it in the right manner. But again, a lot of education and awareness needs to be, given, especially to young women. I think there is a difference between men and women entering into it. And again, that needs to be opened up as to what are the sort of things that are going to be for a woman when they enter into this. There are different stages. We can discuss mut'ah in general, but I think that when you are young and never married, then there is one rule and there is more consideration as well. When you are probably older, divorced, widowed, there is another sort of area you need to consider. So there are different rulings, which I'm sure, Sayed, you can actually, highlight in this manner with regards to asking for guardianship, for permission and things like that, which a lot of young girls, if they're going to enter into it, they don't actually abide by these rules, which lead into a lot of problems. So we do need to be aware of this. It is not just an open platform.
Thank you. Inshallah, as you said, these are some of the points, inshallah, that we will highlight during the discourse of this conversation. Let me bring in Brother Bilal Ali into this conversation. Brother Bilal, as you are known to be a counselor and a psychotherapist who works mainly with young men who are in the transit process from moving on to become young responsible men in the Western societies they live in the inner cities. Now, how and why is it important for a young man to adhere to these kind of rules and regulations in regards with his emotions, in regards with the relationships that he wants to have or he is having, especially in this climate, in this day and age where we see many problems and many difficult scenarios arising between the male and the female in regards with relationships in these kind of societies that we're living in? Why is it important that they have to adhere to these responsibilities and to these legalities in regards with religion and with the law of the land?
That's a very important question because the society that we live in, or the societies, the West society, modern world, westernized societies, there is unfortunately a very strong culture of objectification. The society, and women's bodies have been commodified in the advertising industry, in the entertainment industry, in the movie industry, X, Y, and Z. And so oftentimes young men are continuously exposed to certain images of women in the public sphere. I'm talking about billboards and just on a normal television program, not talking anything specifically for adults. But this drip by drip exposure to these images send a message to the conscious mind, oftentimes to young men, and also the unconscious mind. So men can often, or young boys can often grow up with a warped or a distorted perception in terms of the true value, the true spiritual, the true honorable value of women. So respect for womanhood is pivotal, is key, is essential, and it doesn't diminish or take anything away from us as men when we have respect for women. In fact, it only enhances us and the society. But it's very important that young men who are religious men and who are very aspiring to be devout Muslim men adhere to the.
Ahsantum. Thank you very much, Brother Bilal. Very well put. Let me continue this question, and regarding the Muslim young men and the Muslim young women that live in the UK or live in the Western societies like USA or Canada or other parts of the Western societies. They get into different types of relationships. I mean friendships, starting from being at school, then moving on to go to university, and then moving on to go to work in different places. And it's a natural thing. It's a natural desire for you to be able to speak comfortably in a respectable manner to your colleague, to your schoolmates, to your classmates. So why is it important for a young man or a young lady that is listening, that is watching this show, and you as a counselor that no doubtly have come across young men, youth who come to you taking and seeking advice regarding their relationships, regarding their emotions, regarding having difficulties, wanting to establish a clean relationship, at the same time a safe relationship. So why is it important again for a Muslim young man, for a Muslimah, a young lady, to adhere to the rules and regulations of this contract, of this aqd, which is called the temporary marriage or the mut'ah?
I think that is because there is a spiritual consequence for our actions. And if one wants to adhere to Islam and not just follow the laws and the precepts of Islam, but as I mentioned, the ethical code to really benefit spiritually, then we have to pick and choose what it is that we want to accept from the religion. And also at the age, teenage years, and this kind of time when it's natural for young people to be inclined to people of the opposite gender, it's important to have a focus and a guidance and a way of doing things, and that can only enhance us, and it's very dangerous spiritually if we choose to go on our own, follow our own ego, our own nafs, our own lower desires. So it's really thinking with our minds about what they call consequential thinking.
Ahsantum, thank you very much. Sister Fahima, no doubtly you've dealt with couples from different walks of life, from different backgrounds, from different cultures and societies. How accepted is the mut'ah marriage between the society and the different cultures? I mean, some cultures tend to accept mut'ah as being something normal, and it should be, as it was at the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it was introduced to be a positive thing affecting people's life in a positive manner. It was never to be seen as something negative, as everything that is introduced by the Holy Prophet of Islam and by Islam in general is supposed to be making people's lives easier. Is never for it to be known to make people's lives a misery and difficult, and for arguments to start up. And relationship wise, the most sensitive thing in a family union, in a relationship, is for a wife to know that her husband is in a relationship with one another, with someone else outside that union. So how accepted is it in these different cultures that there is something like mut'ah, which is bound to specific period of time?
To be honest, speaking to a lot of men and women, as well as couples, I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of people that do not like the idea. And like I said at the beginning, it's only because they do not understand that it's actually protection and it's for your benefit. And it's not because it's maybe accepted in society and it's a cultural norm. It's because a lot of people don't want to sort of like enter into this kind of thing because it is looked upon as a taboo. We're not giving enough information as to how it actually can benefit and what are the boundaries, what are the rules. Parents think that their children should never be in any kind of relationship unless they get into a permanent marriage. And as we know, when we are mixing and mingling in the Western society, especially, there is definitely sort of like, association when it comes to being in school and also the culture that it's okay to hang out with somebody. And yes, if in a group, you might be obviously, protected. But if it's one-on-one, there's a concept of, we can be friends with each other and that's fine. But in Islam, as you know, when two people are coming together, there's obviously a danger that you're going to enter into a space that is going to obviously cross some boundaries. But the thing is, people don't understand relationships and they don't understand how detrimental it is to make these choices without actually adhering to the Islamic rulings and guidelines. And Mut'ah gives you that. Obviously, even if you're taking it on, you have to understand what does it actually mean for you and the other person. And a lot of the times, yes, we are influenced by the Western culture because we feel that we can be in control. We have the freedom of, entering into relationships where we understand, but we're not looking at it from a God-fearing kind of way, where we're here not to please just society, not to please even just your parents. It's to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And his rules are, fundamental. That if you are sitting in a crowd, it's one thing. But if you are sitting alone with the opposite gender, it's another rule. And Mut'ah allows you to do that without sinning. It allows you to do that where you don't have to go to the extra mile. Because again, most people think that you're going to enter into Mut'ah, and it has to be always intimate. It's just also getting to know each other. There's a period where people are getting engaged and they get engaged for maybe, months, if not years. So it allows that space for you to be, comfortable. And there's also a rule.
To interrupt you there, just only because we are bound with time and inshallah we want to take a break. Inshallah we'll continue this discussion, which is a very important discussion regarding the acceptance of mut'ah between the different members of the community and the society. And inshallah our dear brothers and sisters will stay with us and inshallah will join us back when we come back from the break. Stay with us and we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, my brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the second part of this show where we are discussing the topic of mut'ah with my respected guests, Brother Bilal Ali, who is a counselor and psychotherapist working with young men, and also respected Sister Fahima Muhammad, who is a certified person that works very closely with couples, coaching them and counseling them regarding life matters. Welcome back, and let me go back to my brother Bilal Ali. How feasible is it for you as a counselor and a psychotherapist for you to come and face individuals who have been in relationships where the relationship has either been ended by the male or the female? I mean, for someone to come and ask, okay, what's the point of me getting into a temporary relationship? I thought relationships were there to be something that I would want to spend the rest of my life with this individual. I'm going to fall in love with them. I'm going to have family with them. So what is the psychological or the benefit of being in a temporary marriage?
This is a really important question. It raises a very important psycho-spiritual issue. There are some people who do not, some Muslims who are devout and practicing, they do not believe in Mutah, but they have earthly desires, they have human desires. Now, if unfortunately they get into a situation where they start to fulfill those natural desires, but in a haram way, it creates a psychological barrier. Sometimes they become shy in front of Allah, and it makes them shy to go to the prayer mat. It makes them shy to attend the Jama'ah because they're struggling with guilt, because they know in their private, secret thoughts what things they've been doing. So the Mutah is a perfect device to allow people to fulfill that human, natural, normal desire. Yeah. But however, it allows them to also keep the most important relationship alive, which is that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
But he's a young man and she's a young lady. She's 16, 17, 18. She's at college or university. I mean, desire is one thing which is very strong when it comes to that young man, to that young lady. And the last thing they want to think about is my religion, my faith, what Islam is saying I have to do in this situation. So how can I, as a parent, expect my young one to be safe from these kind of relationships if I don't earlier on come and educate them about the safety or the concerns regarding getting into these relationships without the legal boundaries of Islam?
So the first thing that parents need to do, to remember, is to be empathic, to be showing a level of understanding. If they come from the perspective of you should not do, sometimes young people shut down. The first thing they want to say is that, I want the best for you. I love you, and I understand it's difficult. You aren't the first person to be young. I've been young. Let that be the springboard from where they give the guidance and have that conversation, as opposed to just tell them fire and brimstone.
Brother, and I know you both agree with me. Nowadays, with the availability of the smartphones and the technologies, the young men and women, the young boys and girls, once they attend a mosque or an Islamic center, and they speak with their colleagues, with their friends, they are discussing these kind of relationship issues with each other. They get to know about Mut'ah from their friends, not from their parents, not from the Imam that is giving the Friday sermon. So when you come and tell them, I love you and I care for you, I as your mother or I as your father want the best for you, don't get into these kind of relationships. They come out and say to you, well, this is what Mut'ah is there for. Now, for a parent to come and listen to their child saying to them that there is something in Islam which is called Mut'ah that you as a parent have put away, have hided, have secluded me from this world. Why is it seen nowadays as to be something dangerous that you should never mention or speak to your children about?
I don't know. I don't understand when Muslims became so conservative or almost Victorian in their ideas about intimacy and human relationships between men and women and desires and things of this nature, because the Quran clearly speaks about human desires and human nature. But parents or the society or the Muslim community really, in terms of the elders, need to change their mindset, because we're living in an era where children are exposed from a very young age to imagery, and even if they don't listen to music, but there's music in the shop or it's around them and their friends and their peers, it's in the culture is saturated. So it is best to confront this head on and have that conversation, as opposed to say there's this under the table, under the counter controversial thing called Mut'ah, and if we don't speak about it, then the problem will go away. No, we need to have this discussion. We need to have it like 5 years ago. We need to be having this discussion.
Of course. I think more than that. Sister Fahima Muhammad, no doubt, again, parents may be addressing you with their issues of their of their daughters or their sons going and becoming friends with people that they do not wish them to get into these kind of relationships. Why is it okay for the father, you know, I'm playing devil's advocate here, or the male to go out to establish a second relationship or to become acquainted with a second relationship, to do mut'ah, and once his son or his daughter comes home and says to him or says to her mother, I've got a boyfriend, I've got a girlfriend, can you advise me? This is very important. Or is the parent going to start having a very abusive discussion with that child, with that son or daughter? Because I myself, and no doubt my respected guests, because you both work in a field of counseling and psychology and coaching, I myself have come across individuals that wanted to do this in a halal way. They both were in secondary school. They wanted to do it in a halal way. The young man introduced the fact that we can do it in a mut'ah. The young lady came and said, well, I am still virgin, I'm still living at home, I need to get the permission of my father in this. The young man went to the father. In all honesty, he didn't want to deceive the young girl, he didn't want to deceive the parents. He told the father face to face, listen, I want to be in a relationship. I love your daughter loves me. We got introduced to each other at school. Now, it's up to you whether you allow us, you give her the permission to do the nikah, the temporary marriage, or we can continue this in another manner. The father became very abusive. The father became very aggressive. Now, what do we do in these kind of situations? Why do we see parents accepting that, fathers accepting it for themselves, seeing it as something normal if his friend comes and says to him, I'm in a mut'ah relationship, but once his son is approaching or his daughter is approaching the haram boundaries, he becomes very aggressive and abusive?
Well, it's quite a very sensitive topic, and as parents we know that they are very protective and they think that their children are never going to grow up and have these feelings, so we have to obviously be a little bit empathetic as well. On the other hand, parents need to obviously, be aware that these things are going to happen. So the more that they are accepting of the fact that this is inevitable, but they are there to protect them. But remember, like I said before, it is also different for men and for women. And when you're a young girl, there is a chance of pregnancy, there's a chance of going into a relationship where you will be held accountable for the actions and choices, where it can actually be seen by the wider community if things were to happen and go down that path. So there is a risk as well involved. There's also the emotion of a man and a woman that is different. The behaviors are different. Maybe for a man, they can actually go from one relationship into another a little bit more easily without so much emotion involved. And by the way, I am generalizing here. But as far as I know, a lot of women, they do want something that may be temporary to start off with, but will end up into something permanent. That's usually the case. And I always advise women that unless that this is something that you know is going to end and you're going to be okay with it, do not enter into it. Also, if you are newly, into relationships, there is a chance that you are going to fall for this person and you're going to want to pursue it till the end. It does differ between someone who is into a relationship for the first time to somebody who is a lot more and older, like I said, after divorce, at an earlier mature age, after being a widow, having a family. And this probably may be more suitable in most cases because they have an understanding, they have experience, they probably can keep a secret, they don't want and need maybe a long-term relationship, and it could actually work for them. But even in those cases, especially as women, they want that safety and security. So yes, there is a problem. There is definitely a problem in the community, and we do obviously have to understand as much as we need, and we have a natural desire for relationships, just overall, regardless of Islam. It is something that is of responsibility and intent. And a lot of people in the community are abusing this, especially young men. So people are also scared of the fact that they're going to enter into something that they are going to be spoken about. They are going to be actually entering into something that they are going to be hopefully, going into something permanent, but it's not going to end up being there. So the intention from the beginning has to be clear between the two people. And as for parents, they need to have these difficult, uncomfortable conversations with their youngsters as soon as they have that ability to speak to them. Because now, as we know, we still have to follow the law of the land, and it is 16 going maybe later on for marriage, as in 18 if you follow some of the legislation here in the UK. It is increasing. So we do have that because there's a culture and a pressure for getting married young. But the mut'ah obviously is temporary, and there's obviously, again, even if it's temporary, there's still a responsibility with people that you can't get into a relationship. But we're not advising them, what does it mean to be in a relationship? It is not just, oh, two people like each other, let's hang out. There's so much more involved. And if maybe we were to give this kind of information, it might help them to maybe hold on a bit, to say, listen, am I really ready for this? So we need to have better conversations with intellectual terminology, because we have this kind of information for us in this first place, which we as parents or even in the community, we do not have, to be honest. Even the rules are not just enough. We need to understand relationships so that we can advise people when they go forward into this, that whether it's, Islamically acceptable, you're not responsible and mature enough to actually enter into it. And these are the conversations we need to be having, more so than even just, oh, is it allowed or is it not allowed?
Dear brothers and sisters, as you are hearing this discussion between Sister Fahima Muhammad and Brother Bilal Ali, and they are both individuals who work in these fields of counseling and coaching and psychotherapy, it's very important for parents to realize the dangers that is out there. It's very important for them to know that what difficulties their son and daughter are going through in their place of work or in a place of education. Inshallah, you will stay tuned with us as we take another break, and inshallah continue this discussion and further on after we come back. Stay tuned and we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear respected brothers and sisters. The parents that are sitting at home and watching this debate or this discussion regarding Zawajul Mut'ah, or the marriage of Mut'ah, the temporary marriage, where we are discussing the importance of this type of marriage in our Western societies. And we have with us respected Brother Bilal Ali, who is a counselor and psychotherapist working with young men, and also respected Sister Fahima Muhammad, who herself is an individual well experienced with dealing with couples and coaching and giving them the advices and the assistance they need in their lives. If I can start this last segment of this show with Bilal, with Brother Bilal, inshallah. Brother Bilal, as Sister Fahima Muhammad before the break, she was speaking about how some individuals are abusing this law, which has been placed in Islam for the protection of the male and the protection of the female. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His holy Prophet and the Messenger and the messengers before him and the Imams alayhim salam and Islamic law, jurisprudence, fiqh, it's all there for the protection of one. Islam, when it introduces a law, it is protecting its followers more than one would protect itself or himself in their community and their society. Sister Fahima Muhammad said that there are some parents who want to protect their children, who sometimes are overprotective. Now, I would come and say that Islam is worried about you and about your children before you are worried yourself. Wants to protect you, wants you to be safe, wants your children to be safe. That's why, hence, they Islam, Allah, the Holy Quran, and Ahlul Bayt, they give us such laws. So when we sit down here and discuss an issue like mut'ah, regardless of those minute individuals who are abusing these kind of laws, why is it important that not only in this field but in other fields that one does not abuse the laws that have been placed for him to protect him and to protect those around him?
Well, you see, what we're dealing with when we're talking about mut'ah, as much as it can be something which involves no physical contact, and it can be a non-physical mut'ah, oftentimes we're talking about human physical desires, and that is a very potent, that is a very strong desire in the human being. And so when people allow themselves to be driven and not to be able to take a second thought, then it can lead us into situations where, when we say dangerous, we mean, I don't even use that word, sometimes overused, dangerous, but in the sense where causes emotional pain. It can lead to emotional pain. Somebody, one party in the contract being left feeling like they've been shortchanged or used, and nobody likes to be used. So I always advise for people to be quite open and quite frank, and particularly sisters, not because sisters are necessarily unintelligent or particularly feeble-minded, but just to be clear, because men do have that capacity. I'm going to generalize. Men generally have that capacity to be a little bit more like a mercenary, to have less of a emotional attachment around physical contact. So they're able to psychologically divorce or remove themselves. So sisters, knowing that they have that more inclination to bond and to cling and to bind with a brother, if they are married to him, whether permanently or on a temporary, they need to be very clear what they're signing up for. And I would have always advised sisters to avoid having these type of secret relationships without consultation with an elder sister, with an auntie, with somebody to seek some guidance and some clarification of what you're really going into. I'm less protective of the brothers because I feel like if it doesn't work out, brothers are less likely to be emotionally damaged.
Santum, thank you very much. And coming back to Sister Fahima Muhammad, if we ask the question that mut'ah is already outside the context of Islam, mut'ah is already there. I mean, if we think about the dating sites, if we think about the social media, everyone around us, our friends, our young brothers and sisters, the ones that we know, they're already practicing it. But what is missing is the fact that they need to utter these couple of words between themselves and everything is legal. In terms of religion, I mean, some may be afraid that, oh, this is going to be, a burden on me. This is going to be lots of responsibilities. I need to go to, I don't know, court for this. But what they lack to understand is it's just there for you to be able to do whatever you want in a discussion. You want to sit down and do some studies, but in an enclosed area with your, colleague at school or with your colleague at work. And Islam is giving you that option to do halal, because if you don't, then as you said, the brother Bilal also said that this is a desire, this is a lust, this is something inside you that's going to automatically arise in whatever situation you are. So why is it important that we, as families, as community members, as centers, as societies, come and introduce the concept of mut'ah, or this temporary marriage, to be something safe and to be something positive for whoever is engaging in this kind of contract?
As you said, it is really important that we have more understanding and education. And I think most people don't understand that it is actually for protection. And again, I think it depends on the individual, whether it's parent or the one that's entering into it, as to what is their intention, what is their motive, what is their meaning and purpose in life. As much as we are here in this earth, in this dunya, living the way we do, and also saying that, we have these natural urges and desires, whether it's mut'ah or anything else, we need to understand why we do certain things, what are the consequences for it, and who's watching and who we're going to answer to. And I think that if we talk in existential ways to individuals, to understand their meaning and purpose in life, and these things come up, and this is the direction, and if you have a choice and you want to make certain choices, these are the directions and the rules that you have to encounter, and these are the things that you have to put in place so that you are protected in your journey of going into Mut'ah or not going into Mut'ah. These are the things that needs to be discussed. These are the things that do need to be openly addressed, not just in the family, but it starts like we're having a discussion today, and it's really important that we do, because again, it's only more conversation that people are going to understand this, and they're going to realize that it is for their protection and power. And every case is separate. Like I said, there are people that are entering into it with absolutely no idea and using it as free dating, and they can go from one to the next, or they are lying to the other person saying that I'm going to marry you, permanently, but we're going to start off with Mut'ah, don't tell anyone. But I think it's really important, as Brother Bilal said, and yourself, that we do need to seek the counseling. We need to talk about relationships as a whole. What does it mean to be in a relationship, temporary or permanent? There is definitely responsibility. There is definitely something, whether you even say those words or not, it is a responsibility. You are taking on someone else. You are considering somebody else. But if you're not thinking like that, then even if you enter into it, you will abuse it and you will be doing wrong. So again, we need to have more conversation about this. We need to enter into a space where we understand that we're living in this earth for meaning and purpose, and why. And obviously, every choice we make has a consequence. And if we are taking that on, we need to understand it very clearly so that we can enter into this in a safe way. And again, everyone has their own circumstances. There are women out there that can only ever be in a relationship only because it's Mut'ah, and it's given them that comfort, that security. And there's other women that have gone into it and they've been traumatized by it. So yes, there are two sides to look at it. So we can't just generalize. We have to look at it as case by case, but it's definitely a place where we need to have more and more. And I keep saying this, I'm going to repeat myself, more education, more information, so that we understand that if it's going to be there, we are fully aware. Only when we are aware, then we will have information that's going to benefit us and the other person.
Ahsantum, thank you very much. Brother Bilal, how important is it for individuals like yourself who, in a more academic sense, in a more professional sense, because it's okay for an Islamic center or a community center or a mosque to have its imam and its resident alim who is expert in fiqh, in Islamic jurisprudence, in Islamic law, but when it comes to counseling and when it comes to psychotherapy, he or she at times, they do not know how to relate to that young man or that young lady that's come to them for help, especially in problems of relationships and choosing a spouse or a partner for themselves. How important is it for individuals like yourself to have a position in these communities, in these community centers and these mosques?
I think it's extremely important, not just myself, but there are a wide number of, Muslim professionals, talking therapists, life coaches, clinicians. People have different psychological issues or relational issues, and it's very important that we've been gifted by Allah to go and study these various sciences, and be able to, practice or implement that understanding of the human psyche that we've gained. And I think sometimes young people in particular, may feel a little bit embarrassed, or maybe find it difficult to explain or open up in ways sometimes to alims, in a way that maybe when they speak to counselors and coaches, that it's easier for us to maybe build a connection. Maybe we're more familiar with certain dynamics in youth culture, or what's happening in society, and we can build those bridges, but also give them that safe space where it's not about us judging them or necessarily always giving them advice, but much time is that conversation that helps them to get a level of clarity about what might be best, what might be in their best interest in terms of a course of action. So there's a therapeutic element of them leaving some of the issues and the stresses in the room and coming out with a clearer mindset of where I need to go next. So this is very important. Very important.
Ahsantum, Jazakumullah khair. Now I think we're drawing closer to the end of the show, and it's very important that we come to a conclusion and we address the outcome of this debate and this dialogue. If I start with Sister Fahima Muhammad, as a closing statement and as your advice, if we can take this opportunity to speak to our brothers and sisters as parents, to speak our brothers and sisters as young adults who are looking to start a family life, or who are looking to start a life choosing a spouse for themselves, and are looking for their options, whether to get into a temporary marriage to be able to understand and know the person they are trying to get married to, or to get into a long-term marriage, or the traditional marriage as it's known, and then gradually, go with the flow, if it's okay for me to use this phrase. So is it suitable in our day and age, the issue of mut'ah?
Absolutely suitable, absolutely relevant, very, very vital, extremely important. The whole idea of relationships, people don't realize that there's many complications to it. I think even disregarding the fact of temporary or not temporary, when we enter into relationships, as I deal with couples a lot who are even married, they don't even understand why they're going into it. I think we need to have more even sessions with premarital courses, so people know that when they're going into something, again, there is, definitely sort of like an impact on yourself and the other person, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Even if you think it's temporary or not, there is an impact that's going to carry you through the rest of your life decisions. And as much as this is open for us to use, we need to know how to use it and not abuse it. We need to understand that, there is an impact on the other person if you are going to enter into this as well. And you are responsible, you are accountable. So be, very careful how you make these choices. Yes, it is there. It is definitely a place and a space for it. But like I said, relationships as a whole, don't take it lightly. And you do need to seek some sort of advice, whether it's from your elders, your community leaders and members, or definitely professionals who are understanding relationships, because this is what it's about. It's not about just saying, oh, I want to go into a temporary or non-temporary. You're actually going into a relationship, and most people don't know what that means. That's why I am, really geared up for this. And I think when I talk to individuals and they realize what it is, they will second guess, they will think twice. Because again, regardless of the desire, the connection, and we need to understand the human behavior and what's behind that and how it's going to lead when you're making these choices. So we definitely need to, inshallah, have more conversation around relationships and how important it is, because it can make and break you, and it can be absolutely wonderful. But we do need to obviously take care of our deen as well as our intention, most definitely.
And coming to Brother Bilal Ali, coming from my perspective, as I am a speaker or seen to be as a religious figure, especially close to young men in the community and the society, if a young man wants to come to you and complain of an issue with his relationship aspects, taboo or not taboo, would you advise him to go and take the avenue of mut'ah?
I wouldn't give him the advice to take the mut'ah or not take the mut'ah. What I would do with him is I would empower him, inshallah, by having a deep level conversation and an exploration of what are the consequences. Let's find out what is the result that you're looking for. What is the outcome that you want? And based on the outcome, let's explore some of the possible, potential, likely consequences of various courses of actions. But more than anything else, I would want him to be honest with himself. But I wouldn't categorically speak out against mut'ah, because it's permissible and clearly there for time immemorial for a reason of hikmah and deep wisdom. So I fully support the legislation, but it's just, it might not suit everybody's situation. So it's about a conversation and understanding.
Ahsantum. Brothers and sisters, my respected parents, my fellow young brothers and sisters who are watching this show, recently, over the period of the past year and a half or more, we have been acquainted with using disposable gloves and disposable face masks, because they are something temporary. You're going out, you need to wear a mask. When you come back, you take it off and throw it away. here, when you hear something about marriage being temporary, it doesn't mean that it's there for you to go and engage into it, do whatever you want, take it and throw it away and start a new process. It doesn't work like that. Islam, the concept of marriage is very important in the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Especially the thing that will bring you, will make a unified unity, this concept which is called marriage, this concept which is called family. So when you hear temporary marriage, don't think that, okay, it's okay for me to go get into this relationship, do whatever I want to do for an hour, for a day, for a week, for a month, take it and throw it away, as if the other person doesn't have any emotions, as if they don't have a heart and a mind, that as soon as you step out of the door, he or she will never be able to think about you. No, it doesn't work like that. It's there for your protection. It's there as an avenue for you to know that for me to get into a relationship, I need to do it in a halal way. And of course, Islam puts boundaries for that. For you to be someone who is still living at home, for you to be a virgin, for example, you are under the care of your father or your mother, you need to take the permission of your father. It doesn't work for the male to come and say, okay, let's do a marriage contract, a temporary marriage contract. You say these words and I say I accept. No. If you're still living at home under the care of your father and your father is still alive, then you need to take the permission of your father. If your father is not around, you still need to get the permission of your grandfather or the elder in the family. So, brothers and sisters, Islam has put rules and regulations for everything, for your benefit, for your protection, and inshallah, in these days and age where we are living in a mixture of different cultures and societies, we are able to use Islamic laws, Islamic regulations in a safe way where we both, the family and myself and yourself, are all in a safe position, inshallah. Let me take this opportunity at the end of this show, where if we sit for hours and hours to discuss this topic, we will not do it justice, but it's a good thing that we started somewhere. Inshallah, other speakers, other community centers, other community leaders, other counselors and coaches, similar to my respected sister Fahima Muhammad from London and brother Bilal Ali, who also is from London, inshallah, we will take and use their expertise to inshallah move forward regarding similar topics which are seen to be taboo amongst the community and the society. It is left for me to say thank you very much. Inshallah, you benefited from this show. And if you have any comments or suggestions or questions, please use the email address or the contact details shown on the screen to get in touch with us or to get in touch with our respected guests. Thank you very much, Sister Fahima Muhammad, and thank you, Brother Bilal Ali, for being with us in this show. And inshallah, we'll join you in other shows, inshallah. Thank you very much to you both.